Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom, along with your host, Bill Stierle, and I'm really excited, Bill, to really dive a little bit more into tricking the giant. We used that as a great metaphor last time, and this is going to become either 2 or 3 parts. This one is part 2, obviously. And we talked about getting to the top of the glass mountain, and that's sort of the next stage, especially for a lot of the Democratic candidates. And so I'm excited to talk about that today.
Yeah, we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, Tom. If for those of you who are listening to this podcast, maybe you jumped in the middle, at the beginning of this thing. We have a group of candidates that are looking to become the next president of the United States. We have an incumbent that is continuing down a path of messaging and trying to reinforce or double down on that messaging in order to get reelected. And a big challenge with that is that it will create a little bit of steam or a little bit of separation. He will see a boost in numbers because he's repeating a consistent narrative of here's a reward. If you go with me, you're not going to lose your 401k. Here is a reward that you go with me. If you put the other people in charge, it's going to be a mess. Here's a reward that if you let these other ideas up instead of the one that you've already betted on, made a bet on, things are going to go south. So that's called a reward. And then there's an anticipation to it. So that raises dopamine inside the body. And then he creates moments of uncertainty. I don't know if we could get here. We're not sure if we have the votes. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a payroll tax. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy Greenland. I'm not sure if these people are. So all of those are tactics. They're languaging tactics that are not real. They're in order to create an experience of dopamine inside the body, as well as a separation or an outrage from the opposite side. If you approach these things with compassion and empathy, they dissolve very quickly. But if you approach them with outrage, they'll actually escalate and cause people to hunker in and double down on their vote. And even though the person hasn't delivered on the person's promises, there's plenty of blame style language to go around about who didn't get things to go the way he wanted it to. So that makes sense, Tom?
It does. I think the president's classic cliche uncertainty quote is, "We'll see what happens."
We'll see what happens is an uncertainty. It's a calculated uncertainty narrative that many, many marketers and many, many salespeople do in order to get the person to say, uh-oh, it might go away. I might lose something on my 401k. Meanwhile, the 401k is not keeping up with the economy. It's not doing the things that it was supposed to do yet, and it's most certainly not going to get a boost, based on some kind of imaginary policy or an imaginary danger that he's creating. And he's really great at creating imaginary danger as well as imaginary optimism. I think we'll buy Greenland. Let's buy Greenland. That's a good idea. How about if we buy Greenland? Greenland's melting. We'll take over this thing. Here's the money to this other country. We will buy this from you. Well, if a country is not in distress, they're not interested in selling. So guess what? Oh my gosh. If they're not interested in selling, then what happens is he's just created more anticipation, more uncertainty, and created a reward that I am a leader that at least is doing something, promoting a bold idea. Bold idea is not a reward.
Well, and to me, he kind of retreated here to his comfort zone as a real estate business person. You know, he maybe has trouble achieving other things that he wants to because there's a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, and here maybe this, you know, land grab real estate deal, something, you know, he could have a victory on. Or, you know, I think he was hoping that. Of course, it doesn't seem like it's getting any serious traction.
No,
But,
you
right,
know, and it's actually not meant to. I mean, it's and he actually pulled the curtain back a little bit. Says, well, it was just sort of an idea. No, it wasn't. It was an idea to both promote and then take away. It's the same thing that he was looking to do with the presidency and running for the presidency. Say, oh my gosh, this is the best branding, marketing thing I could ever do for myself is to run for president and fail.
Right. And of course, he didn't expect to win.
He didn't expect to win. So, and he would never admit to that, but all of a sudden he's in charge of the government. It's like, okay, all right. So you think you know stuff. Now all of a sudden he's in a completely different environment with all different kinds of people in the environment that, you know, he thinks they could just scale down bare bones and actually get some things done or actually have global influence. He just doesn't. And he actually doesn't know how to have global influence. He hasn't knows how to get a real estate project done in Dubai or wherever. You know, he knows how to get that done, build a building, you know, and promise thing and bring a brand name to something. He knows how to do that. Yeah. All right.
Well, so let's talk about the next step for the opponents, the people who hope to unseat this president.
All right. So in our mythic tale, we had this character called the drummer that entered the forest of giants in pursuit of saving the princess being held captive on top of a glass mountain. And so as this drummer is going through this forest, and he starts drumming his drum and waking up the giants. The giants then turn to him and say, we're going to eat you. So if, you know, Kamala Harris goes and says, teachers need a pay raise, terrifies people. What do you mean a pay raise? We've been working to gut the teachers and we got them down to a salary that we can kind of starve them a little bit and they're just going to take it because they love teaching, you know, and then all of a sudden they're going to retire and no one's going to go into the profession, or they go in the profession for a couple of years and then bounce out of the profession. So we struggle as human beings to set a clear mission. We struggle as human beings to really promote a vision in leadership to attain things. So Kamala Harris is going to, after her debate, fiery speech with Joe Biden and talking about her little girl, all of a sudden her points are dropping off because she got the giant to carry her for a little bit, but she forgot that there was a second or a third giant in this story to carry her to the next part of her experience.
So there's this big chasm between, you know, getting into the forest and you can't just trick one giant and expect to get to the top of the glass mountain. You've got to trick multiple giants to carry you all the way.
You got to get the media giant to move. You got to get the labor giant to move. You got to get the educational giant to move. You've got to get the social service giant move. You got to get the military to move. And you've got to get all those different giants to carry you for a certain amount of distance. And so when Trump was doing this in the environment, and when he was out doing his Iowa caucuses or whatever, there was this one gentleman that lost his son to an overdose. And here he is on the national stage, and the father asked about, listen, I lost my son to opioids, and he committed suicide. And Trump sounded compassionate. He sounded energetic. But it gave Trump the moment to get that population that was in pain to carry him. He says, you're a good father. Your father would be proud of you for standing up for him. I'm going to do something about drugs. I'm going to do something about the healthcare system. It's going to be better. And immediately Trump gets carried by the media giant on that message. And meanwhile, he didn't deliver one thing in that direction. In fact, it's worse than what he
Did he do that in 2016, running against the other Republican candidates at the time?
That's correct. That's how he did that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's exactly.
I didn't remember that one, but
yeah. That's a good one. Oh, yeah. And the father later on, there was a video of the father going like, he did nothing. He did nothing for my son in memory of my son. He did nothing with the drug companies. And there was a video of the father going like, yeah, he promised it. And the father just did scary honesty. You know, I gave him that moment where he could talk to other people in my pain, but not doing anything about the pain. You know, not doing anything about the problem or the issue. So Trump did give him a vision. He did give a little bit of mission that I'm on a mission to do that. But, you know, that's not enough to get into the real election.
Yeah, I wonder if, you know, there's enough people in the country who are gonna, you know, really heed that. I think it's a Southern cliche, right? Fool me once, shame on, you know, you. Fool me twice, shame on me, type of thing, right? I mean, are people gonna be duped by him again?
Well, actually, famously, President Bush used that and kind of
he butchered it. Actually,
and the reason why he butchered it is because you could talk about that thing, and you could use that to get reelected. Your people are going to stay with you, but the challenge has to do with the 20% that's going to swing from one side to the next. So that brings us to the next part of the story. The drummer has gotten carried by 3 different giants through this forest. If the politician is talking about policy, you're going to get stuck in the forest. Don't talk about policy anymore. Talk about vision, talk about mission, talk about leadership. That's the thing that gets you through the forest. Now, all of a sudden, when you get to the edge of the forest, there's a desert there. The desert there is where a lot of the candidates are right now. The giant, for his part, took the drummer to the edge of the desert and sets the thing there after the drummer says, take me to the top of the glass mountain. I see it across this desert. The giant goes, there's no way I'm going near that glass mountain. So he sets the drummer at the edge. The drummer takes his drum, starts walking across this desert. And he's walking for some time. Kamala Harris is there. Pete Buttigieg is in the desert. Cory Booker is in the desert. The other 3 are not as much. But Joe Biden is getting tired in the desert right now.
It seems like it, because when you just mentioned vision, have to start setting vision. And I hear Joe Biden saying a lot when he's asked about what he is going to do for America. He is really stuck on, I'm going to beat Donald Trump, or that what's the most important quality you need to have? The quality is to beat Donald Trump. That's not a vision. That's a goal, but it's not a vision, is it?
No, it's not. So let me be Joe Biden for a second and give some clean messaging here. What I'm going to do for the country is I'm going to restore respect to the leadership and integrity to our country, and get the country working in a collaborative way to move forward. That's what I'm going to do. He's not doing that, but that's what I'm going to do. He can't even keep a cabinet member in place. Notice how that messaging, he can't keep a cabinet mentor in place. It's like, that's true. But the truth is after the vision. The truth is after I'm on a mission, not before.
Plus, what you're saying is that he doesn't know how to govern. He doesn't know how to put a team together without stating the fact that he doesn't know how to do it, right?
Right.
It's very different.
That's correct. If you say he doesn't know how to do it, then everybody on his side will go, yes, he does. Yes, he does. It's just that media is so hard on him, that fake media doesn't give him a chance, that he gets no credit for the positive things he does. It's like he's giving all the negative things that he's done as fodder for media. If he strung together 3 weeks of peace and 2 meaningful pieces of legislation, yes, cover that. I'll be happy to cover that. But regrettably, in our adversarial communication right now, there's one media group that creates the edge on one side. It doesn't matter what Obama, how successful he was, even in the face of all the obstacles that he was facing. It doesn't matter of all the progress that he got met about equality, among other things. So they're crossing this desert. So this drummer is crossing the desert, and these candidates are all crossing the desert now. And the desert is, how do you get to January and still be alive? February and still be in the candidate? How do you get past 1 or 2, 3%? Well, guess what? If they don't know how to get through the desert and get to the next task, they're going to get stuck at this next part of the story, which is, as the drummer is coming to the edge of or towards the glass mountain, he sees the glass mountain and he's noticing that it's made out of these sharp, jagged edges, that if you get to the glass mountain and you try to climb it, it's covered, it has blood on it, there's skeletons hanging on it, there's bones over here if you try to climb this glass mountain. But as he's climbing there, he hears this yelling. He hears these 2 people yelling as he's getting close to this glass mountain. And as he gets close to the glass mountain, he still hears these 2 people mountain. And all of a sudden, from a distance, he hears the following sentence: "This is my saddle." And then he hears another person yelling, "No, this is my saddle." And the other person says, "No, this is my saddle. I was here first." The person says, "No, you weren't. You weren't here first. I saw it first." "No, you didn't. I was here first." So as the drummer comes around the side of the mountain, he sees these 2 men screaming at each other, "It's my saddle, it's my saddle." And there's a horse's saddle sitting on the ground with no horse to be found.
Okay.
Just say, "This is my saddle, this is my saddle, this is my saddle, this is my saddle." Here it comes.
Okay, what happens?
The drummer walks up to him and goes, "What are you guys arguing about? Clearly there's no horse here. Why are you arguing over the saddle?" Both of the guys look at him and goes, "You don't know what you're talking about here. This is a magic saddle. And this magic saddle, all one has to do is sit on it and think about where they'd like to be. And the saddle magically takes them there. But the point is, it's my saddle." The other guy goes, "No, it's not. It's my saddle." "It's my saddle. No, it's my saddle. It's my saddle." And the drummer listens to this for a little bit. He goes, hold on, you guys. I think I have a solution for the 2 of you. And then what he does is he goes, okay, and he goes and he picks up this white stick. And he goes out 50 feet, and he sticks the white stick in the ground, and the other 2 guys are watching him. And he comes back and he says, "Okay, the 2 of you, I think I can settle this for the 2 of you. The 2 of you line up right over here, and I'm going to say go. And whoever gets to that saddle first, that's the person whose saddle it is. Okay, ready? Line up." And the 2 guys lined up right there. And they said, "Ready, go." And the 2 guys started sprinting towards this saddle. And as they're running there, the drummer jumps on the saddle, wishes himself to the top of the glass mountain, and is immediately transported himself there.
Okay, so help me with this metaphor. So the drummer was at the saddle at the finish line?
He was at the saddle at the finish.
And he lured them away from it.
He lured them away
line to run toward the saddle. And as they have that distance, he's like, heck with you guys, I'm taking this saddle.
I took the saddle. He jumps on the saddle and goes to the top. Obama did that twice. He did that saddle move twice.
Oh, paint that picture for us, please.
Absolutely.
I would love to recollect or have that illuminated for me.
Obama did a great job at this, the saddle piece. The first saddle movement he did was in his run. The first one he did was, we're in Iraq right now, but really the real danger is in Afghanistan. And we really got to go back to Afghanistan and finish what we were doing there. Immediately, the Republicans were caught flat-footed. And as soon as he did that, a whole group of Americans go, yeah, what the hell are we doing in Iraq? We don't belong in Iraq. We never belonged to Iraq. Yes, I've been in agreement with that. How do we do that? And the military that was a part of that process going like, we had no business in Iraq. What the heck we do go to Iraq for? And yeah, we kill some people. And yes, a bunch of our comrades died, but we had no business in Iraq. What are we doing in Iraq? So all of a sudden now what happened is he got transported to the top of the glass mountain.
So he exhibited leadership saying, you guys are all, the Titanic is going down and you guys are rearranging the deck chairs here. And we really need to steer the Titanic away from this iceberg type of thing.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
It would have been the Titanic if the captain would have not put the Titanic in neutral. If the captain of the Titanic would have looked around and said, is there any ships near us? And kept the engines running for as long as he could in the direction of that ship that was sitting.
As they were going down. How smart that would have been, rather than, all right, let's stop and assess the situation and take on more water.
Right. Right. No assessment. He lost vision. He lost the ability to go like, okay, yes, I could stop. Let's not stop. Let's go towards the ship. No, he stopped to see how much danger it was instead of going like, we hit an iceberg. This could be problematic. And start heading towards the ship that they could see at some distance, about a mile or two away, I believe
Well, there was a ship they radioed as they were going. I think it was the Carpathia ended up there first picking people up. I thought it was like 3 hours away, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You probably
that's a different ship. I know. There's another.
Well, anyway, still, they had 3 hours before the thing went down. They could have gotten much closer and probably saved a lot more lives. Yeah.
Right.
So we're getting stuck in 1912 here for a minute. So let's come back to 2019.
Thank you very much. Well done. So the second moment of a saddle movement that Obama did was regarding the financial crisis. How are we going to jolt this economy, and how are we going to bail out these banks? This was the second one, which was, here's what a number is going to be. I am going to lead with the number, and I'm going to make that number definitive. McCain was following, and the Republicans were following it, because the reality was it was supposed to be $1 trillion. Now they came back and got the other 300 million later to do it.
It took $1 trillion, but Obama changed the narrative. And while everybody else is arguing facts, no, 700 million isn't enough. It's going to be more. No, it is enough. That doesn't matter. He set the vision. And people followed. Wow.
So that's the power of the saddle. Get on the saddle, think about where you want to be, and get there.
Who the heck is going to get on I am going to prevent the Russians from ever meddling in another election again if I'm elected? Who's going to get on that saddle?
Just say the sentence.
Seriously?
If I'm elected, we will tie down certainty in our electorate. we will have paper ballots if I'm elected. One of the Democratic candidates could say that right now. Why are they not saying it? Why? Because they have thought they're going to have some kind of fallback on this. No, they don't have to have any fallback on this. Just say it. Say it and change when you get there. Then you decide on which local level you're going to do it. And the states could get pissed off about this as, no, voting is for a state's right. Don't do it. Don't listen to them. At the federal level, this needs to be addressed, and this is how we're going to address it in the federal level. We are happy to collaborate with the states on an individual basis in order to help them from keeping tampering to going on.
Well, it makes so much sense because, okay, yes, I know states argue states' rights and voting is a local thing. Yes, but Russia invading our country is clearly a national thing. Right? So
right.
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, my goodness.
Get on the saddle. Get on the saddle.
Yeah.
Get on the saddle. Okay. So is that helpful so far?
Very. Yes.
So if I'm going to purchase truth, if I am going to take truth out for a spin, I've got to know that my leadership has got to have a little bit of wobblies in it, but at least it's got to be closer to it. And then don't worry about being called on it because, wait a minute, you're taking it to say, don't worry about stepping on those toes. Obama didn't worry about stepping on those toes. He said, you are going to be able to have your doctor. But is that true? No. How is he going to say you're going to have your doctor all the time? You can't have your doctor all the time because doctors change states. Doctors move away. Mike said, no, it's not going to work for everyone. But the intention of keeping your doctor, the intention of having choice with your doctor is important in a healthcare exchange. It's important.
And I think what you're demonstrating here is that leadership and vision is not always in alignment with the truth or with facts, but in order to become the candidate to rise above the crowd, to get to the top of that glass mountain, you've got to set vision despite the truth or despite facts, right? Yeah. I mean, isn't this like Kennedy saying in 1962, we're going to put a man on the moon and bring him safely back to Earth by the end of the decade? He had no clue how to do it. And I know this. I've been reading a book about the whole backstory about this.
Nobody did.
And
nobody did.
They had to figure it out.
You set the vision and you're going to get to the top of the glass mountain. So what is this glass mountain then? This glass mountain is very dangerous. It is literally Mitch McConnell's cemetery of all of his political opponents. There was a picture that went out that some of his staff people put all these tombstones with all the names of all the political people that Mitch McConnell took down. And it was this entire graveyard of his political opponents. Because one of the things that Mitch McConnell does and continues to do is grab the saddle away from people. He grabs the saddle and he takes it where the heck he wants it. President Obama, you are not going to fill that seat. I am not going to let it go to a vote. That's grabbing the saddle. Now, if Obama counters that with, is that a different saddle move regarding integrity?
Oh, tell me how he could have battled this, because he had no power.
No power. No power, because he's thinking as, what would it be like if I'm going to set precedent against this guy, because chances are my gal is going to win next, and then my gal's got to work with this guy. Nope, you got to take the saddle away from him. You got to take the saddle away from him. There's 2 or 3 messages that could be used here. I have to think about this a little bit deeper.
Oh, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I would love to. And you're very fast on your feet. I would love to hear
40 seconds
how Obama could, but actually 2, and I'll let you think while I talk here.
I think you would go after 3 words. I think you would go after respect, integrity. I think you would pound integrity for about 3 months in the news cycle. Mitch McConnell is not in integrity with the Constitution. Mitch McConnell is breaking the Constitution right now. Mitch McConnell, as a constitutionalist, is affecting what can be done in future generations with president. If Mitch McConnell sets this precedent, the need for integrity could choose not to be honored by other people in his position. So I think he would go after integrity and pound that for about 3 months, and then he would get to the top of the mountain, and then Mitch would, under the pressure of, he would take a hit. I would go right to Kentucky to his back door and just nail him about, listen, this is what he's doing. This is how this is working. Mobilize it. Listen, all you people that voted for him, this is what he's doing. I would go right after it. I mean, I would. And I would go after maybe integrity. You could leak a little bit of fairness narrative in it. You could also work trust. There's the one. I would go integrity and trust. Yeah. And listen, we want to trust that our systems are going to stand up to people that want to get their needs met at the expense of the system, or
there you go.
The concept there. So now we have our
saddle. So make it so it makes it that it's Mitch getting his you just said it. Mitch getting his needs met at the expense of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And at the expense of the American people.
And I would
wow.
Yeah, I would tag it the same way. I would probably put a McCarthy tag on it, and then you got it. So it's the same thing that Senator McCarthy tried to do with communists, with his freedom of the speech and his fear that he created with people. But literally, Mitch McConnell has no shame. So you go right into the past narrative that got McCarthy thrown out and censured and everything like that. And all of a sudden that is really, really terrible. So, that's the way I would have went.
Wow.
And you still could go there. You still can go there because Mitch with the aluminum plant that's taking a Russian oligarch's money that in his state. So it meets Mitch's needs and Mitch's needs to secure his Senate seat, but it's not in alignment with the long-term play, because they have an influence now in that state for that state. And all they got to do is then, once they get one plant in and start doing that, then all of a sudden they've just got to spread their distribution out and then disable the voting system. And then they can weaken it. It's basically what they did in Russia too. Is that they weakened the people's ability to their vote to have a meaningful. Let me say it this way: they're getting rid of the 100 drummers. They're not the 100 drummers. They're disempowering the horde. They're disempowering the groups of people, because once the group of people gets high enough, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't deny this. I mean, China's got that problem right now in Hong Kong. It's like you mobilized 1.7 million. Oh my, that's really problematic. So you better back off your tactics and your strategies of control. So anyway,
wow. Well, thank you. That's it's nice to see that there's a solution or a method to attack somebody else stealing the saddle.
That's right. There is. You can outsmart the two guys at the saddle pretty easily, but you got to set the stick far enough ahead so they're going and running after that. See, they were all going about, okay, how are we going to get out of this quagmire in Iraq? How are we going to get out of this quagmire that we just destabilized the region? Yeah. We actually made Iran happy about that, because we destabilized one of their villains that they couldn't get rid of for 8 years. Right. And we made the oil companies very happy, because now they have access to all the oil in Iraq instead of just the ones that they got from Kuwait through horizontal drilling. So really, really very, very difficult. Okay, so let's get our drummer has just got to the top of the mountain. And what we're going to do for our listeners, by the way, is we're going to meet the hag.
Okay, so the hag is at the top of the glass mountain?
Yes. So when the drummer arrives there on the magic saddle, when the drummer arrives there, on the top of this mountain is a large plain with a lake and a small hut that had smoke coming out of it, and a small forest, or a forest at a little bit of the distance. So it's not just the peak of a mountain, but it's
like a plateau,
it's
right?
like a plateau of the top of this mountain. So there's a little bit of respite at the top of there. There's a lake, there's a forest up there, but most certainly there is a hut that has smoke coming out of it. Now, at the beginning part of the story, the drummer met a princess that was there, but he also remembered that the princess said, my two other sisters flew back to the mountain. So she's one of 3 princesses up at the top of this mountain. So now he's up. Now he's up there. The sun is starting to set. He's getting tired. He's getting hungry. So he walks over and he knocks on the door. And the door opens just a little bit. And inside the door, it's very dark. But he sees 2 eyeballs peeking out at him. One that's bulging a little bit, and the other one smaller, a little bit recessed, almost inviting him in. And he has just met the hag. The hag asks him the question, are you here because someone sent you? Or are you here on your own accord? Now, this is a really important statement that the hag makes. And it's really important that the drummer answers this correctly, because the hag is going to eat him if he doesn't answer it correctly. So here's his answer. He looks in and says, I feel tired. I need some rest. I feel hungry. I need some food. Would you be willing to support me with some rest and some food? She looks back at him and says, oh, we have a wise one, do we? She says, I'll give you some rest, a place to rest, and I'll give you some food if you promise to do these 3 small tasks for me. If you do these 3 small tasks and promise to do them to completion, I will give you food and I will give you rest. He looks at her and says, you have my word. I will commit to completing these tasks. She opens up the door, gives him a place to sleep and some food to eat. He falls asleep. And that night goes the way that it is to sleep in a hut that has a hag that you did not answer the question for, because he did not answer her question.
Okay.
He gave an alternative answer.
Alternative facts.
Do not give an answer in the place of giving self-empathy. Do not give an answer to someone else unless you give the person empathy, or even use empathy for yourself. Now let's do a hag moment with Hillary Clinton, and I'll show you how this works politically.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton, I'm holding my hands up as puppets so Tom gets to laugh a little bit here. So those of you listening to, I got my little puppet hands. Here's Hillary Clinton, and here's a supporter. And the supporter says, those people are deplorables. She goes, yes, deplorables. That's captured on video, and that goes viral.
And so that's where, before she said the I view many of Trump's supporters as, or I call them a basket full of deplorables, this must have happened before that.
It did.
Okay.
You can't do it. You can't get in a fight with the hag and think you're going to win. She'll just eat you. And Trump did. And the voters went and says, wait a minute, I like some of the way he leads. I like his decision making. I like that he has the confidence to fire people. They don't remember that's a freaking reality show. That firing is a part of the design, as if he's such a great assessor of talent. If you think about all the people on The Apprentice, that's not really a great group of people. And it's not an easy group. It's not a hard group to fire because they're so underskilled to begin with.
Oh, they all came from central casting, according to him.
Central casting. They're all in the place of, yeah. So they're all coming from the place of it. So now what I'd like our listeners to really get a hold of is, how is this drummer and how is Hillary Clinton, how would it have been best for her to respond to that hag question that was asked? If she would have responded compassionately, either for herself or for the person that was saying it, then it would have worked much better for her. Okay, your mic. So you're noticing.
I'm aware. I'm sorry. We're going to edit this out. I was talking to somebody else who unfortunately got interrupted. I was trying not to derail you. So sorry, guys. I'm with you. Continue with Hillary.
So Hillary, on her part of it, if she would have said a compassionate sentences like, "I feel sad and disheartened when I hear people call names of a fellow American, and that President Trump has went down the path of calling people names. It doesn't meet my need for respect as a president to talk like that. And even though that you're calling these people deplorable, they are interested in his leadership and some of his ideas. And I'm interested in you as well as them hearing how my ideas are going to make a difference."
Oh my gosh. It would have never given them the attack narrative of her labeling them. I mean, the labeler in chief labels everybody, and she really fell into that trap. Probably felt good in the moment that her supporters were labeling these other people, but it bit her.
Yeah, bitter because it's
the hag, I guess. The hag really is what ate her, right?
The hag ate her right there. Yeah, it ate 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Nah, more like 500,000 votes, I'd say. She lost 500,000, 750,000 votes with one statement of deplorables.
And in key states that she couldn't afford to, that she only lost by 5 figures of votes, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Now, in our next episode, we're going to talk about the 3 tasks that the hag gives the drummer, and the 3 tasks about how the current Democratic field is not dealing very well. Most of the Democratic field is trying to climb the glass mountain by hand. That's what they're doing. And they're bleeding all the way. I listened to a Senate speech from Tim Ryan, where he was talking about, listen, we bailed out GM, and 7 years later, GM has just cost our state, 170,000 jobs or whatever it was.
Right, closing a plant.
Closing a plant. And we bailed them out to what? To get a 6% boost in their stock market? You're kidding me, right? And we covered them. And instead of talking about integrity, instead of talking about the solid relationship between business and government that needs to be established in the leadership, Are we going to continue to allow, as our government, are we going to continue to allow business to affect our voters? Or are we going to protect our voters or not? That was what he needed to say. He didn't say any of that. He was just pissed.
He was just bitter. Yeah.
Pissed and bitter. I mean, he had a conviction, but meanwhile, guess what he's doing? He's arguing over the saddle, and he's trying to climb the glass mountain by hand.
My goodness.
It's like, dude.
It's very interesting how this metaphor is coming and communicating different things of, the difference between, truth, facts, and vision, leadership. It really is some different qualities that each of these people needs and different communication skills they need to learn in order to go the distance.
Yeah. So if you think about the Republican field that was up against Trump, they were doing the same thing the Democrats were doing, which was climbing the glass mountain by hand. And meanwhile, all he did was pick them off one at a time through a series of saddle narratives. He got them running after something instead of setting the course towards something. And and then Lindsey Graham, oh my gosh, he even went after Trump too. And now all of a sudden he's going like, hey, listen, the hag's in charge. So I'm just going to follow the hag.
He became completely subservient.
And same as Bill Barr. I mean, he's in big trouble too. I mean, and for him, he doesn't really care about his career. He's always been the fixer. He's always been the person to write it out, work behind the scenes, clean up people's mess, play the slow ball, I mean, he's another hag version. I mean, if you would like to see the hags, it's almost pretty clear, it's the Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Bill Barr series of tasks that the drummer is going to be facing next.
Wow. All right, Bill. Well, I look forward to part 3 of Tricking the Giant, getting to the top of the glass mountain, and now the hag and the potential pitfalls there, and also the solution for how to rise to the top.
That's correct.
All right. Well, thanks, Bill. I look forward to that. We'll talk to you next time.
Me too. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.